Hi, I'm Jacqueline Goldsby. I'm chair of the Department of African American Studies here at Yale, and I'm really grateful and glad to welcome you to our department's colloquium series endeavors. And I want to say a little bit about this series to give you a sense of how it fits in our department's work and culture, and to bring you into the conversations that we're going to be starting this semester. Typically, we devote endeavors to discuss new scholarship that's shaping the field of African American studies. We invite scholars, critics, artists, and activists beyond Yale. And we also spotlight the work we're doing here on campus to move the conversations about the Black freedom struggle, to move the conversations about all the ways in which Black life effort has shaped this world. We bring the newest scholarship here and we talk about it. And one of the great things about this series is that we focus in typical years on works in progress. We want to see the newest work coming out and give it the best possible chance in conversation with our graduate students, our undergraduate students, our colleagues across the 9 different departments we collaborate with actively in our PhD program, and with community members too, who can make the time to come to our sessions. We talk about works in progress so that scholars, activists, artists, critics can get feedback and produce the best work that they're capable of making. But this year is unlike any other year. And you know the conditions we face. We're facing down a global pandemic that's killed over 200,000 Americans and over 1 million people across the globe. And we know that a disproportionate number of the US deaths are occurring in communities of color. We're facing down the disproportionate killings and brutalization and mass incarcerations of Black people at the hands of US police and judicial systems. And as Tuesday night's debate confirmed absolutely, utterly, and irrevocably, we're facing down threats to American democracy that are stunning, but not surprising, given the Republican Party's concerted, strategic efforts to monopolize all branches and processes of government. Given these developments, the African American Studies faculty decided to devote endeavors to a single theme this semester: Black Now, Conversations for the Revolution. And we decided to invite scholars, activists, and artists whose work stands up to the challenges and provides us models for action. So the questions we're going to be exploring in the sessions we've planned this semester will teach us about these conditions, teach us about the healthcare politics of COVID-19, teach us about the politics of mass incarceration and police brutality and violence, lethal violence, teach us about, as we will learn today, voting rights and voting suppression, but also give us ways to think about what can we do to act? What can we do? How can we do it? What difference can we make? So in a minute, I will introduce my colleague who will introduce our speakers for today. But I want to, first of all, give thanks and lift up our partnership with the Center for the Study of Race, Indigeneity, and Transnational Migration, RITM, as it's known here at Yale. They've been absolutely wonderful partners with us to co-sponsor this series, helping us stage this event for us to convene us together in community through Zoom. And I want to especially thank the center's director, Stephen Pitty, who's a professor of history and American studies and ethnicity, race, and migration here at Yale, and RITM's associate director, Matthew Tanico, who worked very, very closely with our colleagues in African American studies to organize this event. On the African American Studies side, I want to thank Vanessa Epps, who's our newest staff member, our new senior administrative assistant, who worked very tirelessly with Steve Pitty, with Matt Tanico, to organize the logistics. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for your work. And I want to especially thank my colleague, Professor Crystal Feimster, who is one of Yale's most gifted, brilliant historians, who curated this series and did so much thoughtful, she knew who to call, she knew who to reach out to, and made those connections happen. And the series that we have going forward is going to be a brilliant one. And I want to thank Crystal. I just got to give her a shout out here for her work putting this together. My last words here about our format. We're in Zoom, so a little Zoom etiquette. You might have seen and already clicked on, hopefully, that you're willing to be recorded. We are recording these sessions because we want to have as intimate a conversation as we can in the stage here on campus. But we're lucky to be thinking and learning with this activists, scholars, and critics who are going to be coming through this term, and we want to make these conversations available to a broader public. And so we will be posting them on Yale's YouTube site. So, so we will be recording, which means please keep your mics muted, stay on mute. And when it's time for Q&A, which we want there to be a robust discussion. I'll flag now, we're basically going to be using the chat for you to submit your questions, and then we'll present those to our speaker today for deeper conversation. But a little later on, Professor Crystal Feimster will explain how that function will work. But that's how we're going to move through our time together here. So with that, I want to turn things over to Professor Crystal Feimster, who will introduce our guest speaker today. Thanks.
It's just America, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Our lives be threatened daily because we want to live as decent human beings in America. Ain't gonna let nobody, don't let them turn, don't let them turn. Ain't gonna let nobody, I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom.
All types of conniving methods are still being used to prevent Negroes from becoming registered voters.
Ain't gonna let no racism turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no racism. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking. There is a concerted, coordinated effort, y'all, to suppress the vote.
It started when Africans were enslaved and forced to come to this country. There has never been a period of time in this country that there was not voter suppression.
I'm gonna let injustice turn me around, turn me around. I'm going to vote justice. Yeah, I'm gonna keep on.
Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop.
Freedom.
We have to define the job description. We have to define the agenda.
Oh, yeah. Nobody. Turn me around. Turn me around. This is about power. Right. This is about our power. And ultimately, when we show up, we win. Okay. Keep on talking. Marching up to freedom land. Gonna keep on walking. Keep on talking. Marching up to freedom land. Justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. Oh, no peace. Oh, justice. No peace. I said if I hold just a little while longer, fight on. Just a little while longer, fight on.
I come here to urge every person under the sound of my voice to go to the polls on the 3rd of November and vote your conviction.
That was really powerful, and I know that LaTosha is going to talk to us a little bit about her music and the freedom music that she's producing, and I think that's a piece that's going to be on her newest album, but I'm going to let her speak more specifically to that. But I want to take a moment before we get into this conversation to thank the African American Studies community and the Rhythm community for everything that they've done to make this possible. I want to thank Emmanuel, who is our tech person today, helping us out. But I also want to thank everybody who's agreed to participate, from my colleagues here at Yale and beyond. And I think Jackie pretty much covered the bases, but I just want to sort of reaffirm that and my gratitude, and to our chair for also insisting that we make this happen this semester, and because it's important, important work and important conversations that we need to have. So we are fortunate and really blessed to be able to open our series with LaTosha Brown and Amy Meredith Cox in conversation. LaTosha Brown is the co-founder of Black Voters Matter Fund, a power-building Southern-based civic engagement organization that played an instrumental role in the 2017 Alabama U.S. Senate race, and will no doubt play an important and necessary role in this coming election. Ms. Brown is a principal owner of Truth Speaks Consulting, Inc., a philanthropy advisory consulting firm in Atlanta, Georgia. And for more than 25 years, she has served as a consultant and advisor for individual donors, government, public foundations, and private donors who are committed to doing social justice work. And so, but she's also an amazing jazz singer. We're going to get to benefit from a little bit of her musical talents, I think, today. Amy Meredith Cox is my amazing and brilliant colleague and friend, who's an associate professor in the Department of African American Studies and Anthropology. Her research and teaching interests lie at the intersection of anthropology, Black studies, and performance studies, and Black feminist theory. Cox's first monograph, Shapeshifters, Black Girls, and the Choreography of Citizenship, has taught me much. And if you haven't read that book, you need to read it. It is a prize-winning book. She received the 2016 Victor Turner Book Prize in Ethnographic Writing, and honorable mention from the 2016 Gloria Anzaldúa Book Prize. And now I'm actually going to turn it over to these amazing, brilliant Black women.
Oh, hello, hello. Thank you so much, Crystal. Thank you so much, Jackie, for setting us up. LaTosha.
How are you?
I just have to tell you what a gift it is to be in conversation with you, especially right now. I cannot think of a better person to not just help us think through this moment, but to help us develop that deeper level of knowing that allows us to comprehend how we feel in this moment and what to do about that, right? What action to take. So I want to first thank you for carving out the time to be with us here this morning. I know you have traveled, you're still traveling all over the country. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 4 states in the past 10 days, 11 events in the past 10 days. And so grateful for your time and for your energy. And thank you for being here and talking with me. So last night, and this was actually after we had gotten off the phone, LaTosha, last night, I was thinking about how to open our conversation and what to say about this present moment. And so I'm sure you can name right along with me everything that crossed my mind. And Jackie already pointed to many of those things. The ongoing dishonoring of Breonna Taylor's life, the fact that our president, or the president of the United States, sent out a clarion call for white supremacists on national TV, blatantly. The generations-long trajectory of the Supreme Court upon the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as you all too well, the gutting of voting rights and our civil liberties, and the many, too many ways to name that Black life has been and continues to be snatched. The pandemic, state-sanctioned murder, withholding of life-saving resources, environmental devastation, This is where I started to name. This is where I started to start. And then I stopped. Because I believe we have to make our arms wider. We have to hold a different type of space simultaneously. We have to claim something different. We have to claim those combinations of forces and histories that allow you and I to even be here in conversation today. We have to name for whom we are holding this space and who is holding us in this space. This is where we have to start now. So we will, of course, we will address all the things. We will talk about what we are up against. We will talk about Black Voters Matter and suppression and resistance in the face of everything that we are struggling through and with. But I want to open this space from a place that reminds us of our inheritance of strength, fierce intellect, courage, innovation, community care, and of course, love. This is where we want to end up. This is where we have to start. So I want to call into this space, into our conversation, two people that I know we both hold dear. Our mutual friend and fierce advocate for Black women and girls, Tanisha Mcharris, and Angela Davis.
Ashe.
Tanisha says, my power and my humanity are not experienced through who I control, but through who I love and am accountable to. My power and my humanity are not experienced through who I control, but through who I love and am accountable to. Angela Davis, a little bit longer. The work of the political activist inevitably involves a certain tension between the requirements that positions be taken on current issues as they arise, and the desire that one's contributions will somehow survive the ravages of time. In this sense, the most difficult challenge facing the activist is to respond fully to the needs of the moment and to do so in such a way that the light one attempts to shine on the present simultaneously illuminates the future. So LaTosha, these words remind me of my first vision of you, which is that of a time traveler. And so let me explain what I mean by that. I feel that you are rooted and nurtured by the lessons of the past, the work and blueprint etched in our very spirits by those who breathed air on this troubled earth long, long before us. Your work at the same time sits squarely and resolutely in the urgency of the now. As you mobilize all of this with a prophetic imagination that is gazing towards our Black futures. And you know there's no real distinction between these three planes. You show us so clearly how to live in all of them at once, how to do work in all of them at once, guided by the fierce, undeterred love for Black communities that Tanisha talks about, that is a source of light that illuminates how you manifest accountability in your political, intellectual, and activist work. So I honor you, and I want to start with that grounding, with those roots. Black Voters Matter is necessary for all of the reasons we will get into, but I would love for you to situate Black Voters Matter in a larger history, because I want people to understand that as powerful as the work is, it is part of a broader strategy for manifesting Black political power, right? And let me be clear, not empire building, but Black political power. And so we know that voting is in this moment, especially so that we can come up and fight another day, right? Live to fight another day. But I want you to talk about how you see Black Voters Matter as part of this longer political project that you've been involved in for decades and decades and decades. And lastly, I'll just say, you know, how you see Black women, the mobilization of Black women and your relationships with intergenerational groups of Black women being a part of this foundation.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me, over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. I woke up this morning with my mind set on freedom. Whoa, I woke up this morning with my mind set on freedom. Whoa, I woke up this morning with my mind set on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. the day I started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize and hold on, hold on. You know, I want to start in those songs, just what came up in my spirit, because I wanted us to get grounded in the history, that we think about, you know, we think about kind of we have movement as a cerebral kind of interaction, that we're thinking about what were they thinking, what were their strategies. We think about the policy that was shaped. We think about the laws of the Voting Rights Act, that this is the 55th anniversary of its passage. But most importantly, y'all, what it was and what grounds me and makes me connected is that the spirit of the movement continues to live in me. And I think what it does is it actually passes down through generation and generation. I think it transcends time, space, that there's something fundamental that is connected, I feel connected to, that is greater than the US government, that there's something that is fundamentally greater than what is seeing, those forces that are beyond what I may even think that I have the strength to come up against. I believe that my work is rooted and grounded as those people before me, as my ancestors, and something that was greater, that is really driven by our love and our power and our passion around humanity. You know, even when we talk about the voting rights movement and the voting rights and the civil rights movement, we really think about that in the context of what political rights came out of it. But fundamentally, people weren't doing that just all of that work just for the right to vote, just to participate in this system. They were literally reclaiming and literally standing in their agency around their humanity, making sure that their humanity was recognized and appreciated and valued. And so as I think about the work of Black Voters Matter, where we're certainly a power building organization, it is to what at the end of the day is we're building an organization. What we want to do is to literally be able to remind people that their power doesn't necessarily come from the U.S. government or any nation state, that fundamentally in the very creation of who they are in their spirit, human beings, they in fact have value, and that they in fact have agency, and that any decision that is made about them and their families and their communities, they have the power to shape that. And man, when it does not exist or when that's threatened, they have the right to demand that change. And so, you know, my work, I see our work we're doing now in Black Voters Matter. I so apologize, you all. We are, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Okay.
So we are on the bus. I thoroughly apologize. Let me just give some context for people who are watching. We are working. And you were saying that we went to in the last 10 days. No, it's actually half of that was 5 days, right? It was 5 days. We've had 12 events and we're moving. And, you know, I wanted this discussion to be, and a part of the discussion is really important. You know, as we're doing this discussion, I want y'all to know that I'm also engaged in the work right now, that we're actually headed to 2 hours from here. We're in North Carolina and headed to another space that we're doing rallies, and I'll share something about that. I am sitting here on the blackest bus in America, that we go around from communities to community, that we're spread two things, that we're committed to spreading love and building power. And so this organization was founded in 2016 by Cliff Albright and I. And what we wanted to build, and how could we, for years as organizers in the Deep South, we would sit around and think, how could we really be able to support movement building and institutional building? And so we created this organization in 2016. We had the audacity to believe that we would come up with some money from somewhere. And sometimes you have to move, because we have been able to be successful in being able to raise money for a fund. We created the Black Voters Matter Fund first, and Black Voters Matter Capacity Building Institute, which is a C3, for the explicit purpose of the way that our theory of change is that the way that you build power is you build power from the ground up. And that the way that you do that is that we're not an empire builder, which means how my understanding of how I think about it is, we're not going around the country trying to get Black Voters Matter chapters everywhere. We have no interest in that. Our goal is to strengthen and build the capacity of existing infrastructure, that in every community there's infrastructure. Matter of fact, even if we can go back to the enslavement of Africans, there was always a system of communicating. Whether the master or the folks knew, the overseer knew, there was always a system of being able to share food, to share information, to even to be able to gather. And so there's always an ecosystem, there's always infrastructure within our communities. Our model was, how can we be of service and an offering to build and support the infrastructure that's already there? Those organizations, those groups, those folks that at the end of the day, if something happens in that community, they are the first responders. That we felt that that's who needed the support. And so we think of ourselves more like special ops, that the work is already going, the soldiers are already on the ground. Our goal is to come in and shore up and say what it is that you need to be able to provide that. And so in doing that, there's a couple of things that we do and how we provide that. One, we provide resources. We provide direct grants to organizations. In 2018, we funded 180 groups, over 180 groups, almost $1 million that we provided direct resources. And I want to talk a little bit about, Amy, how we did it a little bit different.
Yes,
I come out of philanthropy, and I've worked in philanthropy for the last 15 years of my life. And Cliff Albright, who's also the other co-founder, has worked in philanthropy as well. And oftentimes in philanthropy, there is a particular kind of way that those of us who have engaged in philanthropy in the social justice world, it doesn't feel good often, right? You know, in many circumstances, you feel like you've got to swear, one, you got to prove yourself. You always got to prove yourself that you are worthy to receive resources. Two, it often feels like you're held at a different standard, not felt, it's true that you're held at a different standard than some of your white counterparts. And three, if you're not doing the work the very way that they think you should do the work, because obviously they know how to movement build better than you do, right? That if you don't do the work in that context, that is something fundamentally wrong. And so what winds up happening, it creates this dance that you have to be not your authentic self, or literally talk about the authentic work. You have to create and make yourself, you have to contort yourself to fit into this kind of criteria of which what they have set out for it. So one of the things that we did, we wanted to be different. And so even as we go into communities, we do research before we go into communities. We do advance. Before we literally did anything, Cliff Albright and I went around the 7 states in the South and we listened. We went from state to state to listen. People know what they need. People know what they want, right? They know power. And so fundamentally, I think one of the problems is that folks are always telling, particularly Black folks, what to do. They want to tell us what to do, what we should be doing, what we need to think, instead of actually taking the time to listen. That there is power in the listening of people that can actually shape and tell you what it is that they prioritize. They can also, in your hearing, if you're really listening, what they're not saying, you can be able to hear, right? And so I'm raising that because part of the way that we've shifted our funding and the way that we approached it is that the groups that we had done work on, we had like basic criteria. One, groups were rooted in community. Two, community. Three, that credibility. They had community credibility. Have nonprofits or not groups. We have been existing organizations, have a 501c3. Some of them were churches. Some of them were reproductive rights groups. Some of them were prison reform or work. Some of them were the 3 old sisters in the church that just make sure that everything in that community keeps rolling, right? And so fundamentally, when we would identify those groups and talk to other folks that actually we were able to see those 3 criteria, the first thing we did is we would give them a mini grant. No paperwork, no questions. It was amazing. They would say, well, what did I got to do for this? As a matter of fact, they were suspect. Like, well, why y'all giving us some money? It was like, because we're investing in what you have already done. It was like, well, what I got to do for this? It was like nothing. That you've already done the work, right? What we want to do is give you this investment, because what we've heard from your community is that you will always serve and show up when people need you. And so what that did is it broke the dynamic. It shifted the paradigm of this idea of that people have to prove themselves to you. What's really in, and it shifted the paradigm and broke up the space around this grantee-grantor relationship. We didn't want a grantee-grantor relationship because there's a power dynamic in that. What we wanted is we wanted a partnership relationship, that to recognize that we are coming to you to be supportive to you, that you in fact are leading the work, that you are in the fact of who we all need. We are dependent on you in North Carolina and in Alabama and Mississippi. And so part of our approach, even just initially coming in to be able to provide a mini grant, it wasn't so much about the money, but what the money did is it changed the power dynamic in terms of how people normally get resources. And so it opened up the space. I remember, you know, one of the groups that we're working with in Southwest Georgia, he said, he was so kind of suspect at first. He said, you know what, I don't want a grant, I just want a megaphone. We're like, you want what? He said, I want a megaphone. So we're like, I mean, okay. So we gave him we bought a megaphone for him. Literally, the day he got the megaphone, he's a leader of the NAACP of Southwest Georgia, one of the counties of Southwest Georgia. The day we got the megaphone, he organized some of the folks that he worked with and went and took over the city hall. We were like, well, if we had known that, we would have bought you 2 megaphones, right? And so part of it wasn't so much as, and after that time, we have been supporting his work. You know, money matters, but really intention matters most. Like how you show up in the space for groups. Are you showing up in a way that you are affirming them? Or are you showing it up in a way that says, once again, you got to prove to me, Black people, that you are worthy, that you are valuable? Or do you show up in a way that says, we see the value in what you're doing? What we have found is that the mini grants are just a start. You know, what we have found that even in that conversation, quickly, the conversation is never around money. That most of the groups that we're working with, it's not about money. Right? Because we changed that dynamic from the beginning to let them know, even for us, it's not about money. Even though that's one of the things that we offer, we wanted to change the paradigm in which there is this monetary exchange and say, no, the money is significant to the extent that it helps you do your work. What we want to hear about is your work, and we'll figure out what we need to do and what kind of support you need so that we can continue to do that. And so even in our funding process, you know, there is a simple, so that we can track and keep records. There's a simple process now that when people fill out for our mini grants, they can get grants up to $10,000 to do their GOTV work or their power building work, the work that they have deemed that's important around power building. What's really interesting around it is, and this is hard for people to really conceive of, just recently, some of our partners that we know are doing really, really good work. You know, we had given a grant to them, one of them in Alabama, in February. And so we called them, we said, Simba, we haven't gotten anything from you. We see you doing all this work, how are you paying for it? He said, I'm paying for it out of my pocket. We're like, well, why are you doing that? And he said, because I didn't want to come back to y'all. I'd already got some money from y'all. I was like, that's not who we are. That I'm raising that because philanthropy has set up a structure and a particular kind of culture that people constantly feel like they are some way indebted or some way that they can't come back and ask. The way our process is, we told them, like, whenever you need resources, you come to us. If we ain't got it, we just gonna tell you we ain't got it. But I can guarantee you, if there's a will and a way, we're gonna have to figure out how we can get that money, even when we fundraise it together. So even part of our process is to really be able to destroy all of those mechanisms that have helped us to feel marginalized and undervalued, and so that people have a role. It is so interesting. That is like the toughest part, to really be able to convince folks that literally it is an open rolling cycle. Tell us when you need, what you need, and it is amazing the level of trust, the level of expertise, the way that communities, you know, that's why this whole fallacy that we're hearing around, you know, people get money, they're abusive. We've put so much, we've wrapped up so much of a frame, this capitalist frame that is valued, that centered money, that makes people respond to it in a certain kind of way. If you take that out, if you take the value out, right, and literally focus it on the value on the work and the rooting of the work, it changes the dynamics altogether. We have had a excellent experience with our partners, and we move millions of dollars, right? We trust them, they trust us. We even know that oftentimes the money that we give, part of the time, I'll give one example of how, for people to even understand that it's not about money. A good example I want to share is some work that we did in Tennessee. In Tennessee, there was a community oversight board. There was a group in the community that after several murders of Black men and Black women in that community, they wanted to come together and put a community oversight board together. Now, what was interesting is the FOP put millions of dollars. The Fraternal Order of Police put the police union, millions of dollars against this campaign because, of course, they didn't want this oversight board, because in many ways we know that law enforcement, there are many in law enforcement that don't want any accountability, and particular accountability to the Black community. And so when we got involved, we were just started, and we got involved, and we were their largest funder. And I think that we gave them a total of somewhere under 30,000. I can't remember exactly what the amount is, but it was under 30,000. They were up against millions of dollars and the most powerful union and lobbyists in Tennessee. Guess who won? They won. Because what all they needed, it's not money. We think oftentimes that it is the money that changed the politics. No, it's the political will. If you can get the resources to people who are organized, there are organizers that are doing work that you can't even pay them for their work. That fundamentally what they are offering, it doesn't even have a tag to it, right? There are people that are giving, when people are giving out of their spirit and their passion and their belief system, that is what is transformative. Money is oftentimes limited because it's transactional. And so while we recognize that money is needed as a tool to help build the infrastructure, we also recognize that it is not the driver. It is those things that create transformation that are the driver. So, Amy, I know that was a long way around.
No, that was I intentionally opened it that way because I knew through that you would take us there. I knew that would just allow you to take us all the way there. So many lessons. I mean, that was a whole sermon, but so many lessons building on what's already there. The idea that you have to come into particularly a Black community and change it. But we know this from our history. Life is already there. The transformation is already there. So building on that foundation, and it's not about the money, right? The foundation or the there-ness that allows for change doesn't need money necessarily, right? And so to think differently about how we access resources. Another thing I want to highlight is how you have traveled through. Now you're traveling around the country. We know this because you're on this bus with this, janky Wi-Fi, but you have traveled for many different institutions. You have traveled through philanthropy, which I myself think of one of the whitest, most white and conservative and capitalistic structures. And you have found a way to renegotiate the terms of what philanthropy can do in our communities. So when we think about the 501c3 in our neighborhood that's not doing anything, everybody knows it's not doing anything, but keeps getting grant money, and you come into that same community and say, no, it's really that grandmother down the street who's taking care of all the children, who's providing food. That's where the money needs to go. And rethinking how we think about resources in our community and what work looks like in our communities. One thing that I want you to expand on and move us into thinking about the work specifically right now in this moment around Black Voters Matter is listening. And I just have to tell you, as an anthropologist, as a Black feminist anthropologist, how jealous I am of you on this Black bus right now. I'm tempted to leave my
the blackest bus in America, by the way.
And because my whole reason for coming into the discipline of anthropology, speaking about, if we're talking about colonial projects, these white institutions, you couldn't get much, deeper than that than anthropology. But for me, coming through anthropology was about a Black feminist model of being in community in the way that you talk about. You don't just come into a community, you research that community, you embed yourself in that community, and you listen. And so I'm wondering if you could talk to us about, from your listening, because we hear a lot on CNN, MSNBC, reading blog posts, the way people talk about voting in the Black community or Black communities, the way that Black folks are or are not thinking about voting, the way that Trump has created, you know, the voting electoral process, completely delegitimized the electoral process and how maybe people are responding to that. Our choice, or the undecided vote in the Black community, not being about a vote for Trump or Biden, but whether we vote or not. Like, these are all sort of the narrative around voting in Black communities. And you are traveling across the country talking to folks. And I'm wondering if you could give us a sense of how the people you are on the ground with, you're literally on the ground with right now in this bus traveling through the country, how they are imagining their vote, how they're thinking about their relationship to the democratic process, how the kinds of conversations you're having, and what we can learn that we're perhaps not learning when we're watching the news, right, or through mainstream media. Like, what is the real word on the street? What are people feeling and talking about and struggling with?
In essence, what is real in the field. And so what I would like to do, I want to show a quick clip. Crystal, if you can show, I'm going to show a quick clip, and then I'll come back to answer the question.
We got power. We're about to get ready to launch our We Got Power tour.
Cliff and I are going on the blackest bus in America. We're hitting the streets again.
We're going to be going through at least 12 states, maybe more. I'm just really excited.
Now, it's a little bit different this time because COVID-19, we've got to wear masks, we've got to be socially distanced, but we are very committed that we've got to get in the streets and inspire and encourage our people in ways that are socially distant.
Ready to hit the road, ready to see our folks, ready to be socially distant, ready to mask up.
On our way to Pennsylvania, we'll be there for 2 days, and then we're headed to Ohio to Cleveland.
We're going to be just spreading a lot of love and building a lot of power.
The very last day, we're going to be out here on the ground in these streets because our people need us. Can't stop, won't stop.
Register to vote. You can even request your online vote by mail ballot by clicking the link or by scanning our QR code with your camera. Vote early. Vote today, because we got power.
You know, in the quarantine, in addition to that, having the one bus, we actually have two, and they had some babies. So we have 20 minibuses, baby buses, that are in 11 states that were going in. And I want to talk about that too, because, I mean, it's just a bus, right? But it's not the bus that makes the magic. It's actually the message. And I don't know if you all were able to see, I want to kind of share one of the incidents that happened early on when we started. On every bus, every tour, this is our third tour. Every tour that we've done, on the bus, you will never see a Black Voters Matter, and it doesn't have love and power. And that's because our work is rooted in those two values, love and power. Everything that we do is in between those two. And so when we're talking about the work of what we're hearing on the ground, we approach the work from a perspective and a place of that everybody has power. We just are there to remind them, not to give them power, but to remind them that they have power and to be able to accentuate that and pull it out, and that everybody is deserving of love. And sometimes we have to be reminded of that as well, and to be reminded that we are loved. And so in this process, you know, what I think is really important, that when we've been talking to people going on the ground, you know, as I said earlier, I do want people to recognize the most powerful tool as an organizer is listening someone. And I didn't say to listen. I intentionally said listen someone. And what I mean by that, it is oftentimes when I think about, you know, everybody, think about how many times, everybody always got some advice for Black folks. What we need to do, what we need to be thinking. I mean, everybody got some advice about what we doing wrong or what we need to be doing X, Y, Z. When the truth of the matter, we have done extraordinarily well. The fact that right now, that even when I talk about voting, just take this, that right now, Black people vote on par to our white counterparts. In addition to that, Black women actually had the highest voting turnout than any constituency group in this country. The significance of that is, in light that white voters have received the majority of the economic, political, and social benefits of this system, the fact that Black folks, it's only been 50 years where we've seen our vote be supported and protected through the Voting Rights Act, for us to be on par, it is actually extraordinary. The fact that we have to go through hell just to be able to get our registration, to go to vote. I'm saying that because there's oftentimes this narrative as if Black folks ain't voting. Yes, we are. We're voting at the same level as our white counterparts who are reaping the majority of the benefits. So we've got to shift the narrative to literally, as my grandmother used to say, speak life into people instead of death into folks. Speak life. Let's talk about what it is, not just frame us from a victim, but frame us from the perspective of we've got more to do. And this is, and certainly we have to expand, but also the democracy should not be laid at the feet or on the back of Black folk. When I think about this country and I think about the founders of this country, Amy, you know, the founders of this country had some brilliant ideas about democracy, but they certainly were limited in their vision, so much so that they couldn't even see you and I or Jacqueline or any of the others that are on, many of us on this, they didn't even have enough vision to be able to see and recognize our humanity, right? But at the end of the day, so I consider them, yes, they were the founders of this country. But when I say the founders of democracy, I think about those folks in Selma, Alabama that was on the Edmund Pettus Bridge that literally pushed this country to be what she needed to be, to push this country to really be able to deal with what is the foundation of democracy. If the vote is not afforded to all citizens, then how can we really call this truly a democracy? And so in that space, I think we also have to shift how we're having this conversation of what is at stake now. That we have to shift how we talk about voting, and we have to shift around how we're engaging around this. And so as I talk about listening, part of the piece is, you know, I remember a couple of years ago when I was first starting being an organizer, I went to a basketball court and I had asked this young man I was registering people to vote. And he was very dismissive. He was like, I'm not registering XYZ. And I started to try to evangelize him, to tell him how many people had died and why he needed to vote and people had paid the price. And I mean, I was just like passionate with it. I was like preaching a sermon. And, you know, he said to me calmly, so are you asking me that I need to put my faith in a system that doesn't even believe in me? Is that what you're saying to me? What was I gonna say to that, right? I didn't have an answer at the time. It took me about 15 years to develop an answer. I got an answer now, but it took me about 15 years to really understand, you know, to really sit with that, because the truth in what he said. And I mean, he went on, I mean, it was a number of things. He was a brilliant brother. I remember he went on to talk about there are folks voting, and we've elected this, and my grandmother and them elected these folks, and look at my community. Look at it right now. Like, he literally challenged me on the spot. And so over a number of years, I can still hear that brother. Matter of fact, he has been my greatest teacher around voting, because it was in my listening to him that I had to really deal and wrestle with the truth in what he was saying, because everything he said was true. And I say that that is actually in the shaping of how I approach the work. So when we're going out talking to folks in the communities or on the streets, and they say, you know, I'm not gonna vote because I don't believe that my vote matters or my voice matters, and they gonna do what they want to do anyway. You see how my community operates. Instead of me trying to evangelize them and to get them to convince them to believe in the system, the first thing that I say is, I'm not trying to convince you to believe in a system. I want you to believe in yourself, number one. Number two, I want to know, what is it that you care about? Because I never say that people are apathetic. I have not had a single conversation with any person that didn't care about something. And so instead of the conversation be around voting, the conversation shifts to, what is it that you care about? And then when it shifts to what they care about, and I listen them, I can understand what it is that they want to see. And they usually connect from the listing of what they care about. And I said, well, okay, you care about it. You're so passionate about it. What is it that you want to see different? Which then goes into their vision. And then they'll go into their vision and say, well, want to see my cousin got 20 years and this other dude cross town, he only got 6 months. And I want to see something different. I want to see that DA. I was like, well, what you want to happen? I want that DA that did that to him. He got to go. Exactly. So if you want him to go, guess what? Guess how he gets in power? He's elected. The point is, I make the connection of voting on how it can impact them getting the decision or whatever it is that they want, that they care about. Oftentimes we've had voting so far up here, right? And part of it is because people really, there has been an effort in this country for us not to really lean into understanding the power of voting. It isn't by accident that 45% of the population don't participate in the process. There is an active effort for people just to be proxies. Just get somebody to vote for you and go about your business, right? We've got to shift the narrative from voting being about participation to voting being about power. And so even in that conversation, when I share with them is, I will say to them, I actually agree with you. When you say that you're frustrated and people have been in office and done anything, you're absolutely right. I'm with you. I believe it. I felt it. I feel the same frustration. And so what we have to do is really be able to show folks, have an honest conversation about the limitations of voting, but also to be able to get them to see what power leverage it does have. And so if we're bringing it from a perspective of being honest, saying, yes, you're absolutely right. Voting is not the panacea. I'll be the first one to say, voting ain't the panacea. It ain't the end all or be all. It's not gonna solve all our problems. It was frustrating to me when I would hear people say someone that got murdered, it was like, well, just vote. No, we ain't gotta just vote, but vote is one of the pieces. It's one vehicle and one leverage to power. And so fundamentally, we shift the conversation, that the conversation isn't just about participation, it's about power. And then I go into this conversation to say, I don't know about you, but LaTosha Brown, every decision that is made about me and my life, I need to be a part of that decision. How do you feel about that? You don't want to make a decision about you, well, somebody's gonna win. It's just like a basketball game, which is all the time. A team is gonna win. The question is, which team is going to really reduce the harm happening to your community? Yes, it might not be the perfect candidate. It might not be the perfect political party. But fundamentally, and quite frankly, it's been very, very, very rare that I've had the opportunity to vote for the ideal candidate, right? I see voting a tactical strategy for a larger goal of what I see, which is to reduce the harm in my community that is happening right now, to hold people accountable who are harming my community, and to also put people in place and position that actually have some alignment with the agenda that I have with my community. But I don't stop there. While I'm doing that, I am also building, right, and building a new framework for us to collectively vision. I am building new networks for us to really be able to amass the kind of power that we can actually talk about the replacement of systems, that we can start envisioning what is the next thing. And so my work, when I am on the streets and when we're talking to folks, one, I think there's 3 point takeaways. One, there's an authentic conversation with folks around the limitations, but also the power, the leverage of voting. Two, that we make a specific connection around what it is that they care about, that how voting can impact that. You know, it's hard for you to get people to care about the presidential election when they've lost control of their school board. So you start from where people are. And then the third thing is, I think, really being able to get people to shift the focal point, so that the focal point isn't about the candidates, but it's not about the political parties, but it's about the people. That fundamentally what the Constitution says, it doesn't say we the political parties, it doesn't say we the candidates, it said we the people. And so over time, I think we put so much focus on how do we amass political parties, the power of political parties, how do we find the candidate that's gonna come and save us all, that we've gotten away from the basic foundation of democracy, that the power always should rest and reside with the people.
Yes, and I want, so I'm looking at the chat, and the chat is mirroring exactly what I'm thinking in this moment. You mentioned the skepticism that many voters or potential voters have. I also want to talk about the real fears and how we can understand what the threat is. So I'll just, in terms of my own experience, my family in Ohio, people are terrified of voting. And so when we talk about voter suppression, I know that means something very different in each state, and it manifests in different ways. There's states and folks that are more vulnerable than others, but I'm wondering if you could speak to that. And I'm going to pull up, as you're as you're thinking about that, there's a couple of comments that speak to that, really thinking about, well, when we talk about voter suppression, what does that look like? How do we understand the real threat to bodily harm and violence that folks are dealing with and considering as part of the reason to really want to protect themselves? And then what can we do? But I want to read, I'm going to read you a comment from the chat. This is Deborah Wells, who does a lot of voting activism. She says, I'm concerned that when I go to early voting, there are white supremacists at the library and I must record their behavior and possibly be armed in response. Everyone in Florida is armed. Need it come to that? And just in conversation with Deborah, we have another comment that's related to that. There's some social science research that shows that police contact, not even arrest, just contact, is a significant deterrent to Black voting. Can you talk about how you think about arming communities to resist state violence that is actively trying to disempower or even kill them? So we're having these questions that are really thinking about kind of the extent of voter suppression and what that means as you know, acts of violence, and how are Black communities processing this? How are they thinking about resistance? What are your ideas around it? And can you outline for us what those threats really look like? And what can we do? What can we do? And what states, where should we be putting our energy and our attention?
I'm back.
Okay. All right. I don't know. LaTosha, did you hear?
I heard the question.
Okay.
I heard the question.
Okay. Okay.
I am on the back roads of North Carolina. Welcome to the bus, y'all. Let me share a personal experience that happened 2 days ago. So 2 days ago, I wanted to show the bus we've got. It's a moving billboard, right? And you may not have been able to see the details, but the way that on the bus it has "We Got Power" in huge letters. It has Black fists, love, power, Black people all around the bus. It's about us, all of these messages that are affirming messages for Black people. And even the "We Got Power" in the middle of it's a Black fist raised. And so on the highway, it gets its own share of love and stares and everything in between. But we rented Cliff and I, because of COVID-19, we had decided that we would stay in an Airbnb. And so we went to Cleveland. We went to Cleveland. We went to stay in an Airbnb. And normally what will happen is the bus will go to the hotel because the bus stays at the hotel. And then there's our security team or runner team will take us back to the Airbnb. Well, on this particular trip, what wound up happening was the bus went directly, because we had been driving all day. The bus went directly to the house. We went to the Airbnb at the house. And because we were doing a training for groups in Texas, we sat out in front of the house for about 20 minutes, did the training, went inside. We were with our videographer that was doing some interviews. And so as we went upstairs and kept working on our plan for Detroit. We were starting to plan our trip for Detroit. Cliff, my co-partner, was downstairs doing an interview. And while I was up there on the phone, I could smell something burning, but what I thought was that there were some wires that may have been loose in the top of the building. And for whatever reason, it's silly me, I didn't get up to go check it out. And so about 5 minutes later, we hear this bang on the door, like they're trying to bang the door down. And we're like, what is happening? It was startling. And so we go to the door, Cliff goes to the door because I'm upstairs, and this woman is screaming and she says, "Get out, your house is on fire, your house is on fire." We're like, what are you talking about? And sure enough, and we could smell it. And so I run downstairs, Cliff goes, and we look in the back of the house, and all we see is fire. And so he goes inside, he gets a bucket of water, and he goes to try to take it out. Now, mind you, it's raining outside. So we're like, well, how did a fire start and it's raining outside? And so we call the fire department, 911, the fire department comes, and they extinguish the fire. And then they start asking us questions, and what we later found out, there's a recycle recyclable bin that's by the house, the garbage can that's by the individual house that was on fire. Right. And so we don't know. At first the fire marshal was asking us, well, was there something in there? Were you all smoking? We were like, no, we weren't smoking. We went in the house. We didn't do anything. And later, and then I wound up telling him it was interesting, two things that stuck out to me. As we were talking, I said to him, he was like, well, here, because there was nothing outside. So, well, no, we have a campaign bus. I was like, and the bus has some messages on it, like the word black, that some people may find offensive. And so, when I said that to him, it was interesting, his response, because his response was like, almost like, oh, I get it. Like, oh, okay, then that makes sense, right? And I was like, well, damn, we can't even say black, huh? But anyway, and he said, okay, and they brought the arson team. What was the second thing that was interesting is they're across the street, that went across the street because they were trying to get footage to see who had set the fire, because the fence burned. It could have been a really bad circumstance. At this point, we had decided we were going to leave and go to a hotel. And he went across the street, and there happened to be a black family across the street, and there was a woman upstairs that was yelling out the window saying, I am so tired of this. I am so tired of this. Every time somebody black rents that house, they call the police on them. Every time they keep harassing those people. And so the man downstairs, who I don't know what her relationship with, but I can tell they were family, he kept telling her, go back in, go back in. And so I decided to ask him, but I could tell that there was some fear from him. And I just kind of asked him quietly, I said, you have some real problems in this neighborhood? I didn't realize we were staying in a white neighborhood. And he said, yes. I said, do you think somebody tried to set the house on fire? He said, why else? And I knew he was talking in code to me. He said, why else? And all of the fire chief and the arson investigator is standing there. Why else would a trash can by the house catch on fire in the middle of the rain? And he just looked at me. I said, okay. Do you think that we probably should leave? He said, yes. I was like, okay, got it. He said everything I needed to know. We knew, it's interesting because as I think of myself as someone who is courageous, but racism is traumatic. This just happened 2 days ago. We've had, I think, 11 events since then in the same city. The next day we had 8. I'm still shook. To be honest, I'm sitting here, the idea that I'm thinking that just because we got a bus that has Black Voters Matter on it, that you would try to burn us up and kill us, just the reality that it is real. And I can go on with other stories. Part of, you won't hear a lot of those stories out because I've made kind of this strategic choice that sometimes I think violence begets violence. And so a lot of times when you put it out there, it creates these copycats. And so I don't know if that's the best choice I don't know if that's a good choice or not, but we don't publicize it as much. I mean, just even a month ago, I was in Louisville, Kentucky. I went there to stand with the families of Breonna Taylor. We went to a gospel concert, we did a training, and we were leaving. A police officer, I'm not sure if he was a police officer, it may have been a state trooper. An officer took a picture of the bus, posted it in some white groups on Facebook. My brother's mother is white and friends with someone in Kentucky. Literally put that there were rioters and thugs that were coming to Kentucky to tear Kentucky down, and the list went on and on and on of people saying, actively looking for the bus, how they could hurt us, how they need to cut the tires, how they needed to do a roadblock to really bring harm to us. We got for today. After that, even now, we had to hire an intern just to go through the hate mails and the messages that we get. Because while we're doing this work in the spirit of the power and love, hate is real. We have pulled up into places down in South Georgia where when we pulled up, just like in the 60s, that folks in our face will flip the sign that say we're closed to keep us from getting gas or something in the convenience store. I'm talking about in 2018, 2020, right? I got all those stories, but I can also tell you the story about when we went to Randolph County. And when we're in Randolph County, this woman who was an elder, they were getting ready to close, they were closing the polling sites, and we had a mass meeting. And as we were walking out, she walks out with her cane, and I'm walking kind of assist her. And she looks up at the bus. I'm actually moved now. She looks up at the bus and she said, "Baby, does that bus say Black Voters Matter?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, because we do." And she started crying. I know why she cried. Right? And I'm saying that because we cannot act like this election is another election. Y'all, this ain't just about two different candidates. We are talking about fascism. We are talking about the president of the United States that literally gave license to a white nationalist supremacist group from the debate stage. And we're operating like it's normal, right? We're operating like it's acceptable. Right. And so I share that because when we're talking about moving around in the bus and when we're talking about fighting for democracy, literally, we've had to hire security to go. I myself, like, I'm not just going around. People can see us and we're that's real. We're excited and we're doing the work. But even for us, just to have the audacity to say Black Voters Matter, there are people that seek to do us harm, to scare us. I personally, even at my own home, maybe a month ago, right, received a package that was handwritten to me to my home, even though we've got my address scrubbed from the internet, from Russia. So much so that the FBI came to my house. They got the package. All it was, what we found out was it was a little toy, like a squishy toy, that had one word that said Borowski on it. There wasn't anything dangerous. They brought the hazmat team out. They took it to the crime lab, but they spent a whole lot of time and energy and resources to send something to me that does not have any value. I'm raising this because when you all seeing people, and I'm not saying this about me, I'm saying this, that when you're seeing people who are on the front lines every day that are literally out there, they are literally risking their lives, that we are in a particular kind of environment that I don't think we're taking seriously, that we're not understanding that when Trump says the dog whistles to white supremacists, you can go to my page. There are other, we've got screenshots of where there are white supremacist groups that literally, a motorcycle group just the other day, yesterday, that saw the bus at a stop and said, we pulled off because we got scared. I mean, just the bottom line is there is an environment that part of what is voter suppression has been an environment of fear. And so when we're doing this work, right, we have to recognize what is at stake. This isn't just about an election and about candidates. This is literally around how are we going to shift the culture of this country, that we uproot racism and structure racism in a way that traumatizes, creates harm, and discouragement to millions of people in this country.
I first want to say thank you, and we support you. And I'm echoing, this is in the chat, and this is from my racial formations class, LaTosha. I teach a class that is really about the foundation of Black studies for first-year PhD students in African American studies. And this is from that class cohort. Please express our love and gratitude and support for LaTosha. Goodness, sending prayers and positivity and power. You know, I'm thinking, you know, in those stories, there's so much in both of those stories. And as much as we understand, and is all too well in this moment, the terror of racism, we are being terrorized. We've always been, but we see it in this moment. It's the terror of it, the trauma of it. But I'm also touched by the will of the elder who was coming out to vote. And I'm imagining the same sort of care that you showed her. You have other examples of how folks are taking care of one another, right? And looking out for one another in the face of communities where the police might as well be, the police are terrorizing folks as they're voting. So you cannot rely on the police as a source of support or protection against these violent so-called poll watchers. And so I'm just wondering about the ways that, I guess two questions I want to ask you. how you have seen folks be able to take care of themselves and show up. What are the ways that you suggest for us to think about all of this in the face of terror, as we're also thinking about the importance of the vote? And also with that, what can we do? So a lot of us are in states, I'm just assuming, a lot of us on this Zoom are in states where, yes, our vote does matter, but we might not be in those critical swing states. And I'm wondering what advice you have for all of us. So how you, maybe there's lessons from your travels, from the ways that Black folks are showing up for one another. But how can we, if we're, you know, how do we, what should we do right now, right? What should we do beyond voting? Are there ways that we can support folks in other communities? What are the most important things for us to focus on as we are now? I think it's 33 days out from the election, and still the electoral process is happening now. So we're no longer, as you know, it's no longer election day, we're in election season, but as we approach the voting day, as the 33 days out, what should we be focused on? What should our eyes be focused on? Where should our actions be rooted now?
So, you know, just to kind of even build off even from your last question, what I wanted to get to is that at the end of the day, Dr. King said it, I've struggled whether I, particularly a sizable amount of my adulthood, whether I believed it or not, I know it to be true. Power is the only force that's greater than, love is the only force that's greater than hate. I know that to be true. And so in that, what drives me and drives the millions of other folks, you know, that we work with, that are actually doing the work on the ground, is love. And our collective power. So some of the things that we're doing even at the polling sites, we've seen it, you know, because oftentimes those same folks like the Proud Boys, they're cowards. They're not used to being challenged. They're not used to really being able to come up against collective power. They're not used to really being able to be accountable. And so oftentimes, I think what we have to do is we have to show up our forces and show up collectively together. That's the best way to do it. And so I am encouraging folks, this is part of our, it was a great question earlier, you know, around whether people, I'm not one of the ones that I think, I think that it's that we are not the, you know, I believe, oh, I forgot my thought. The bottom line is that people are showing up we've got to show up at the polling site. We've got to say that we are standing in our power. The whole purpose of our We Got Power campaign is to say that we've got power. Love is our power. Our resiliency is our power. And I'm not one of those folks that believe that we don't have the right to bear arms. I'm not one of those people that believe that that folks of color should not have protection for themselves. I will say this though, I think when we get to the space that we get in the game of violence meets violence, I mean, what we gonna do, have a shootout? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, where's the end in sight on that, right? And so I think we have to strategically recognize that part of what happens, and even with Trump, when he's really challenged on it, you know, he talks mad trash when he by himself and when he's around his crew, but he ain't said that in the Black community yet about the Proud Boys. Right, my point, because there's an element of racist that literally there's a space around of cowardice. And so what we've seen and experienced, that just having people at the polling sites, just having poll workers and poll watchers that are trained at the polling sites, that just having people that are there that are that bear witness, I can tell you it makes a difference. It makes a difference how the people on the inside act. It makes a difference on how the people on the outside act. That in some ways, what you've got to do is you've got to really be able to go to the process, be driven not by hate and fear, but be driven by love. That we love our community to the extent that we're going to protect our community, that we're going to fight for democracy, that we're literally going to do everything in our power to engage folks. The fact that right now there are children in cages because they've got a different color passport, what is wrong with us? The fact that there were women who had forced hysterectomies, right, and are not able to bear children because they were seeking refuge in this country. For us to dare to brag on some way that fundamentally America is the greatest. Yet we would do that to other human beings because of what? Passport? If you ain't mad and pissed off, something is wrong. That we are literally in this space, that we've got a president in office. I don't care about his economic policy. I don't care about any of his policy. The fact that he would use hate as a vehicle to organize and keep himself in power, that's all I need to know. I'm raising this because we keep operating as if this is just some different political election, that, oh, it's the Democrats or the Republicans, or I don't need to hear another debate. For what? Fundamentally, we know what's at stake, and fundamentally, we're going to have to connect on how it's going to be different. And I want to do something, Amy, if it's possible, with everybody that's on this call right now. I'm just going to ask you all, if you could just get centered. I do this all the time. I just want you all to get centered wherever you are. Just kind of get centered and grounded. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. I'm going to ask you a question. Keep your eyes closed. Imagine America without racism. Now, I know we don't have much time, so I'm going to ask you to go ahead and open your eyes. How many of you could actually see something? I do this exercise all over the place. I do it at Harvard. I do it in the community. I did it on a basketball court last night. Time and time again, 99.9% most of the time of the people that I ask that question can't even imagine this country without racism. And so my next question to you is, what has been created and brought into being in the physical world that wasn't first envisioned? The cell phone? Somebody actually had to see the cell phone for it to be created. Someone had to see this microphone for it to be created. There is nothing, look around your room, there's nothing that is in existence that someone did not envision it first. I'm raising this because if we do not shift and move past just responding to what is and envision something different, we will never achieve it, because we can't bring that into being, which we do not.
LaTosha, can you hear me?
I know. If y'all can close your eyes. My question is, what is your radical reimagining of this nation? Open your eyes. That's where we've got to spend more time, y'all. That's where we've got to spend more time. We will constantly continue to be in this rat race and this hamster wheel of having the same regenerated conversations about racism until we can actually hold something different in our minds that we want to actually bring into the world. When I talk about, oftentimes I tell folks around, what is it that we can't reimagine? That at the end of the day, I even think about the work week. Has anybody ever thought about, like, what's the magic of 40 hours a week? Like, what's the magic of that? If technology is created so that it actually cuts down production, why are we not passing on the benefits of the means of production down to the workers? Why couldn't we, if it used to take 1,000 workers to make 100 cars, and now it only takes 10 hours to make 100 cars, why don't we keep all the workers, cut down their time, and actually give them more money? That is possible. We could use technology where people could work 15 hours a week and make more money and spend time with their family and their children. Most of us, until COVID-19, didn't even know our kids. We knew them on the weekend, but we didn't see them. They were being raised by a system that fundamentally is even telling them oftentimes that they're inferior. Why can't we reimagine education? Why can't we reimagine every single system in this country, that the economy is not based on how well the stock market is doing, but how well her people are doing in this country? But it will never get there if we don't radically reimagine every single system. And so I could come and talk about, you know, all my challenges about America and its system. I could come and talk about what we need to do in the moment, because this is what we have right now. And so, but I also have to think of myself as a Black futurist. I don't have the luxury just to respond to what is now. That while I am responding to what is now, I am often pushing my mind to think about what is possible, because I want to bring it into being, just like Steve Jobs wanted to bring this iPhone into being. But
Yes.
It will never happen if we're not spending time, not just fighting what is, but creating some space for us to reimagine. And so with this, I'll stop. I'll just say that with this, it's important for us to know that what's at stake right now, that sometimes we have to make a tactical decision around voting, that we just give people, buy them a little space, just a little grace and space. They may not be able, that person that's in office might not be the person that's going to be the person that we need to make the transformative change. They may just be the transitional person. And that's okay. But every single time, every single thing that's available to us, every single tool, I love my community and I love humanity so much that every single tool that is available, that is within my reach to use, I am actively trying to think, how can I use that to provide some space for people to create that which I want to see in the world? And so we've got to also see this is what we're doing in the meantime, is I see it as a boat, that you're on a big boat, you're on the Titanic out in the water, and the Titanic is sinking, and all you got is this little old raggedy lifeboat. That's all you got. That's all you got. But the goal is, I got to make it to the shore, so that I can get to the shore and I can create that boat of which I know that I deserve in my communities. And so we've got to really be able to be tactical in how we see elections, in a way that we're not seeing it around, do we have the perfect candidate? Right? We've got to see it around what decision, because a decision is going to be made that is going to create the least amount of harm in my community, provide some protection and some space, while we build this new thing that I call, that grows out of my radical reimagining of this nation.
Amen. I mean, I'm just satisfied because you responded to my very last question, which was going to ask you, in your Afrofuturistic self, to imagine through your radical imagination what we should be thinking about and working towards, and you did it. But I'm wondering, this is it's going to be a challenge for you, LaTosha, but in 2 minutes, there's like 3 demographics that folks are interested in the chat. And you can pick one or maybe talk about them, how they relate together, but folks are talking about felons and what's happening specifically. I'm looking at Emma's question. The Marshall organizations like the Marshall Project have reported that many people who are incarcerated do not register. Wondering your thoughts about that. There's also a question about what the South can teach us, the 21st century South's got to say or teach the rest of the US right now in this moment. And then there was another question about Black women who give so much, and so much is not poured back into Black women. So there's a lot there. But I just wanted to
try to do the speed round.
Okay, I just wanted to voice that.
It's in 2 minutes. So the first thing is, I think that when we're talking about felony reenfranchisement, I think is the same thing as I'm talking about earlier, that fundamentally in a democracy, all people, I believe, should have the ability to be able to make a choice and a decision about decisions made about them, including those who've been incarcerated. And so if you look at the work, I'm just going to lead you all to the work of Desmond Meade down in Florida. Some of the work that I did over 10 years ago is I actually started the Alabama Coalition to Restore the Vote. And so I think there's a critical component around, when you look at who's on the fringes of democracy, that's actually where what points to you what will strengthen democracy. And so I think you fundamentally, please look into the work of Desmond Meade down in Florida. The second thing is when we're talking about the South. So y'all just follow me with this. When we think about the financial center in this country, what do you think about? Wall Street. When you think about the political policy center in this country, what do you think about? Washington, D.C. When you think about the entertainment center in this country, what do you think about? Hollywood. You don't even have to think twice about it. When you think about the roots of white patriarchy supremacy in this country, what do you think about? The South. That's right. You're right. The bottom line is, when we're talking about who is run for you can be as blue as you want to be in California and in New York, right? But who is running the country right now and setting policy for the country is actually Southern seniors, senators. Mitch McConnell is from where? Kentucky, right? Lindsey Graham is from where? South Carolina. And so because we've advocated, when we're talking about the South, welcome to the South, y'all, we all experiencing it right now, that fundamentally what we're talking about is shifting the national discourse around race and other issues and policy priorities. We're allowing Southern seniors, senators, to actually take control of that process. They are literally running the country. It wasn't by accident that Trump's very first rally was in Alabama. And so as long as the roots of racism allowed to live unchallenged in the South, then we will continue to see what we're seeing. So when we're talking about there will be no progressive America unless we uproot and strengthen and work in alignment with folks in the South. That's just the truth. We've got the receipts to show that. And so fundamentally, what I say is the South is red until it ain't. That fundamentally, when you look at the people, the numbers that are in North Carolina and South Carolina and Alabama, the reason why the voter suppression is so great, right, is because when you look at who's moving down South, right, and you look up at the demographics and the demographic shift, that's where our power is. So when I'm talking about, we're talking about building a progressive movement in this country, that you uproot the structural racism in the South, you challenge that. If you change the South, as goes the South, goes the nation, point blank period. The last and the final point is, I would say that Black women have always been on the vanguard, you know, of fighting for democracy. We even stood 100 years ago in the women's suffrage movement, right, with our white counterparts. Like, let's be honest, that what most people don't know is that the abolitionist movement actually grew, actually birthed the women's suffrage movement. It grew out of the abolitionist movement, and that in that context, that while Black women were actually on the vanguard of supporting that literally it was over 50 years later before we secured our rights. And so just as we stood with our white women counterparts, it's going to be interesting to see whether they stand with us. And I think that we've got to put that strategy as well, that fundamentally what Black women have been able to do, that in the midst of, we understand, we sit at a particular intersection of sexism and racism, and our ability to be able to navigate through those worlds, right? And our ability to touch, to tap into our humanity. I always say, my grandmother told me that my great grandmother was a wet nurse. Like, who can have a greater humanity than to feed a child at your breast when your own child can be sold, right? Who else has a humanity to nurture and take care of the very people who were killing them and were selling them off? There's something about the humanity of Black women that, whether this country acknowledges or not, I acknowledge it. I've seen it. We've got the receipts to show that we have been consistent in this country. And so in that's why we do, as one of our 5 principles of Black Voters Matter, is that we lift up the voices and the work of Black women. I know I went a little over 2 minutes, but I tried my best.
You did that, and you got it all in. And I promised myself I promised Tanisha I wasn't going to cry, and I'm not going to. I just want to thank you. I could not have imagined, speaking about imagination, a better way to kick off this Endeavor series. And I love the title, Black Now, Conversations for the Revolution. I just pat myself on the back. I came up with that. But anyway, you embody everything that we need so desperately in this moment and beyond, LaTosha. You know, you are just, you are history. You are so much of what we need right now. And you're always pointing us to, you're forcing us to not just imagine what we need, but to create that very thing. You know, you are modeling that right now. You are creating that very thing that we need. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful that you exist, that you are here to teach us, that we can learn from you. I'm about to teach a class now, and I don't know what, we just gonna talk about what you just said. You just laid it all out for us. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I just want to tell everybody here, there will be more conversations. Endeavors is on and popping. LaTosha got us started. Our next Endeavors conversation is October 22nd. That's with Emily Wang. We'll be talking about justice and health. Again, something else that, LaTosha, I know you're working on as you work through all of these communities. We are sending you protection. We are sending you light. We are covering you as you move through this country on your bus. Know that we are holding you. And please, 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 I know you are, but please continue to take care of yourself. And we will see you on the other side.
I will see you all.
So
I
much.
just want to say love will win. If nothing else, if y'all don't remember anything else I say, that love will win. When I'm looking at the screen, even right now, the beautiful faces, and it is this is our, the diversity is our strength. This is what America looks like. That stage wasn't reflective of what America looks like. You know, that debate stage, but this is what America looks like. And so I just want to encourage you all to really spend some time radically reimagining, you know, working through this process, standing in a space of love. You know, we're being attacked right now, not because we're losing, we're actually winning, y'all. We're winning, and there's nothing they're gonna be able to do about it. We've just got to be clear about letting this moment, you know, the last thing I'll say is what a diamond is. All diamond is a piece of coal put under extreme pressure over time that becomes a diamond. And what does it gain? It gains clarity. So I'm hoping that in this moment of great pain and pressure, that we allow this pressure and this pain to really be able to turn it into clarity, a sense of clarity for us, so that we go forward and we radically reimagine this country. So love y'all. Thank you so much. When we work together, we win.